Senator, do you feel there should be a litmus test for individuals who are nominated to the Supreme Court?
Well, judges are not supposed to be deciding things in advance, nor are they supposed to pick one group over another. And so there really should not be litmus tests. But unfortunately, on the other side, the Democratic side, they do have litmus tests. And you saw that in the excruciatingly irritating and unfair treatment of Judge Bork, of Clarence Thomas, and you can name even Robertson Alito, who are two of the best legal minds I've ever seen. So was Judge Bork, and so of course was Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas is writing some of the best opinions on the court right now, and yet he was treated just like dirt. And one reason was they thought he was anti-abortion, and in each case.
Will there be a unified effort by the Republicans to stall a nomination in the committee or the full Senate if you deem this nominee unacceptable?
Well, I personally believe that every nominee deserves an up or down vote, and that we should have enough time to really examine their qualifications to make sure that they are qualified for the job. We have an obligation to advise and consent. We should give advice to the President. If we think somebody is not qualified or otherwise should not be supported, but we ultimately have to vote. And I don't think those votes should be put up indefinitely.
If a nominee is put forward with a judicial activist history, would you lead an opposition the way the Democrats led an opposition to Robert Bork and Justice Thomas?
Well, there's no question that if we find somebody who is a judicial activist or has the absolute propensity of becoming a judicial activist, yes, we would try to point that out as carefully as we possibly could. And in the end, though, we would probably be limited to vote against that person. Now, some would like to filibuster judges. I'm not a fan of filibustering judges. I think the President has a right to nominate whomever the President decides, whoever the President is, and we have an obligation to advise the President up till that time, and we have an obligation to either consent or not consent to that nominee.
Conservative groups were on the Hill yesterday pressing Senate GOP members to fight inappropriate judicial nominees. What was your response?
Well, if the word inappropriate means unqualified, then we ought to fight them. I mean, but if they are qualified, that becomes the difficulty. We may differ with them ideologically, but that's what you get when you elect a president. Whoever the president may be, there's no doubt that in the case of Democrats, you're going to get a much more liberal set of judges. And it isn't just the Supreme Court that's involved here. It's the district courts, the federal district courts, and very importantly, the federal circuit courts of appeal are involved. And I just hasten to point out that the federal circuit courts of appeals hear thousands and thousands of cases that the Supreme Court will never take up or never hear. So they decide an awful lot of the laws in this country. And if you get activist judges there, they could turn this country into a nightmare. And in some cases, some of these activist decisions have in relatively important areas.